My top 5 dark horses for the 2020 NFL season. 5 teams that I think could shock everybody and make a run at this year's Super Bowl. Now, to qualify as a dark horse for the upcoming season, these teams could not be within the top 10 Super Bowl odds. And I have the list right here of the teams that were in the top 10 Super Bowl odds. Don't get mad if I don't list them on this list. That was the Chiefs, Ravens, Niners, Saints, Bucks, Cowboys, Pats, Eagles, Seahawks, Colts, Vikings, and Steelers. So they weren't eligible for today's video. In each dark horse that I do list, I'm gonna start from the team that does have the highest Super Bowl odds. So the 5th and final team that I do list as a potential dark horse for the upcoming season will be the team with the worst odds for this upcoming season. So essentially the biggest underdog according to Vegas. So team number 1, the Atlanta Falcons. They're actually just outside the top 5, and out of this dark horse list does have the highest odds to reach the Super Bowl this year. But for some reason, man, I love the Falcons. Although, even though they have the highest odds of any team on this dark horse list, they're the team I'm the least confident in, but still confident enough to put them on this list. I love the Falcons, dude. I love the potential that offense has, and the fact that they signed Todd Gurley. I know it's not a 100% Todd Gurley, and a Todd Gurley that we haven't seen his best of in the past 2 years or so, but this was a guy just 2 or so years ago that was the best running back in the NFL. If the Falcons can get like 70% out, I just spit everywhere. But even if Todd Gurley can give like 70% of his best from like 2 years ago, that would be huge for the Falcons, and I think put them right up there for a shot at this year's Super Bowl. Now keep in mind too, the Falcons are in an extremely tough division with the Saints, with the Buccaneers now, Tom Brady and Gronk, even with the Panthers. So if they're going to make the Super Bowl, they're going to have to get through a very tough division. But if they can make it to the playoffs one way or another through that division, they're 100% going to have a shot. And as mentioned, I love the Falcons offense. I am a huge believer in Matt Ryan. Still believe he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. You throw in Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, who's going to get better and better. Russell Gage isn't even bad. And I do know that they did lose Austin Hooper, but they did bring in Hayden Hurst via trade. Now, is he as good as Austin Hooper? Probably not, but it's going to be interesting to see him in that Falcons offense. But with that receiving core, with that high passing attack, and you also now add in a new dynamic in Todd Gurley, although, I mean, they had Devonta Freeman in the past, but if Todd Gurley can even get to 70% of his former form, like, they could have a huge season. They also did lose Desmond Trufant, but they did draft AJ Terrell, who I'm a huge believer in as well. They also signed Dante Fowler Jr., and they also drafted Marlon Davidson, who I think has a huge future. So if the Falcons make a huge run this year at the playoffs, at the Super Bowl, I would not be shocked. At number 4, we have the Denver Broncos, and they're really the team that got me even thinking about this video idea, because I am a huge believer in the Denver Broncos this upcoming season. Obviously a little bit overshadowed, you know, because the Kansas City Chiefs are in that division, but I still think they have great talent, a great team that could make a push to this year's Super Bowl. We're really going to see what Drew Lock is about this season. Like, he did have a huge season last year when he did step in as starter. A lot of people are still skeptical, but we'll be able to see this season. He won't have any lack of talent at the wide receiver position. Not only do they have Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant, who Drew Lock started to have a big season with when he stepped in as starter, they added Jerry Jeudy, who I think is the best receiver as a rookie this upcoming year. They also added KJ Hamler, a really good receiver out of Penn State too. They already have Phillip Lindsay, who's a really good running back, and now they added Melvin Gordon, and kind of the same thing as Todd Gurley. You don't know what you're going to get, but he can even give like 70% of how good he was 2 or so years ago. This offense could be deadly. The offensive line is also improved, and on the defensive side of things, dudes, they also added AJ Boye, and they added Jarrell Casey. Now, as a Titans fan, that one hurt, but what Jarrell Casey will bring to this defense is leadership and a beast in that DN, and these two players got added to an already very good defense, in my opinion. So this team has all the pieces, I believe. I've just now noticed, dude. Has he been there the whole time? But this team does have all the pieces to make a run for this year's Super Bowl. It is really all depends on the development of young QB, sophomore QB Drew Lock. I guess he's just gonna stay in here. Now, number 3, we have the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't know why, I just have a really good feeling about this team. What are you even chewing up? Now, let's get the obvious out of the way. You have Kyler Murray in year number 2, the rookie of the year offensively last year. They add DeAndre Hopkins to that wide receiver core, arguably the best wide receiver in the league. He's added to a core of already having Christian Kirk, who's already pretty solid, and Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, we all know about Larry Fitz. And we've seen some quarterbacks have huge progression in their second season. You saw what Lamar did in the second year. Patrick Mahomes, what he did in the second year. So look for Kyler Murray in that offense with Cliff Kingsbury, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, to have a huge, huge leap into the second year. And I mean, if he has a huge leap from his first year, which was already pretty good, expect some crazy numbers from him. Not to mention they do have a full season of Kenyon Drake. We saw how good he was once he was traded over to the Cardinals. And they also, their defense, I believe, is a little underrated as well. They drafted Isaiah Simmons, who I believe will easily win the Rookie of the Year on the defensive side of the ball this year. I think he's going to be an absolute monster, a future All-Pro, maybe even an All-Pro his first year. And not to mention the entire linebacker core is sick as well. I don't know, I just have a really big feeling that the Cardinals are going to have a really, really good year and surprise some people. Now, number 4, and another team I really am believing in is the Detroit Lions. And obviously, this season does come down to the health of Matt Stafford. Missed the majority of last year. His back was a problem. I think he didn't fracture his back. Matthew Stafford, if he comes back and is 100% healthy, this dude, once again, a lot like Matt Ryan, I believe is one of the most underrated QBs in the league. Has been putting up insane numbers throughout his career, and he just really hasn't had a good team around him. He's had some good receivers every now and then. I mean, obviously, he had Calvin Johnson, but the defense has always let this team down. They've had no running game, really, but that is going to change this year. Not only did we see a lot from Kerryon Johnson last year, they drafted DeAndre Swift, a beast running back out of Georgia, who I think is going to have a huge career. So you now have Matt Stafford, who can throw the ball very effectively to great receivers, who we'll get to in a second, and DeAndre Swift, and a good running back in Kerryon Johnson, and not to mention Bo Scaro back there too, who can kind of have a change of pace, run over some folks on the goal line. And he had a pretty decent season when he came in too, because all the running backs got injured last year. Like I said, the receiver core, I do believe it is one of the more underrated receiving cores in the entire league. I mean, you have Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, even Danny Amendola, TJ Hawkinson at the tight end position, who I think is even going to get better in his second season. You saw he was pretty freaking good when Matthew Stafford actually played last year. So this receiver core, I think, is extremely good. So this offense, dudes, I think it can keep up with anybody in the league. And as I said, the big problem with this team over the past decade or so has been their defense. But guys, not only did they sign Desmond Trufant, who's a very quality cornerback and a past All-Pro, they drafted Jeff Okudah, the best cornerback in the last draft. So just like that, dude, they have lockdown number 1 and 2 corners. So this team, I really do think is going to shock some people this season. And last but not least, the final team on this list who does have the lowest chance on this video of making it to a Super Bowl via the Vegas odds, and I was shocked to see them this low. I think they were like 4th or 5th lowest odds in the entire league, and that is the Carolina Panthers. And guys, let me tell you right now, honestly, this pick might come down to some bias because I've always been a massive believer in Teddy Bridgewater. Ever since his Louisville days, dude, this guy is a beast. I really do think he's super quality, and giving him a running back that he can throw to like Christian McCaffrey, I think it's going to even elevate his game even more. He's smart. Obviously, he doesn't have the mobility that he had in the past, obviously with his huge injury, but just something about Teddy Bridgewater fitting in this offense, something about it just feels right and feels like he's poised for a career year. And once again, like a lot of teams on this list, you'll see a lot of trends kind of on this 5 dark horse list, is their receiver core also, I believe, is extremely underrated. You have DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and they did add Robbie Anderson, who I think is one of the most overlooked moves in the entire offseason. And that is another thing that has been a problem for the Panthers in the past decade or so, especially when Cam Newton was going through his prime time. They've never had very quality receivers. Like, their best receiver before the DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel era was freaking Kelvin Benjamin. Steve Smith too, but that was a long time ago. So I really don't see this offense having any problem to score. And obviously the big dagger this offseason was the retirement of Luke Kuechly, arguably the best linebacker in the entire league. He retired out of nowhere, but the linebacker core, believe it or not, I still think is going to be solid. They have guys flying around the field like Brian Burns, like Shaq Thompson, and they actually drafted a ton of guys on the defensive side of the ball that can make an impact right away, like Derek Brown, who's going to be an absolute monster. I think he'll probably be... Ooh, that's tough. I think he's one of the 2 for sure, or maybe 3 for sure defensive all-pros from this past draft. He's going to be a monster start day 1. And even Gross Matos from Penn State, who I kind of wanted my Titans to draft. The dude's going to play on the edge, going to be a beast defensive end. So I do think the loss of Luke Kuechly isn't going to be felt as much as a lot of people think with the additions they made through the draft. And they're in a very tough division though. Like I said, all the teams in the NFC South, I believe, have like some bit of a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Seriously. Like the Bucs, obviously with Tom Brady and Gronk, we have no idea about them. I think they're going to be good though. Obviously the Saints, we'll have to talk about them. And I already mentioned the Falcons in today's video and the Panthers. So this division, I do think might be the toughest in football this upcoming season. So if a team or two teams out of this division make it to the playoffs, I think they have a shot just as any other team to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, because this division is crazy. So let me know what you guys think about my top 5 dark horses for this upcoming NFL season in the comment section below. Don't roast me too much.